Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today is packing day. So tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. flight out to Nevis, and I'm going on my trip. And I want to give you guys an update. This video is really two things. The first part of this is going to be recorded on my SL2-S, talking about kind of my mindset and around photography, and then I will show you what I'm bringing. It's going to be a little bit of a contradiction to my video I made about travel advice, but I'll tell you why. And I'm actually still kind of conflict about it, to be honest with you. So the first part of this video I recorded on this because I'm going to flip over to my iPhone for the second part. But anyways, you know, I spend a lot of time on this channel talking about gear and different stuff like that. And I'll be honest with you, I spend a lot of time, as I do before every trip I go on, thinking about what gear to bring with you. What I always ultimately find in the end is that, you know, I only end up using one or two lenses. And I'm primarily a prime shooter, and that's typically what I do. And the reason for that, before I go into the kit, is because you're there to spend time with your friends and your family. You're there to spend time with your coworkers in this case sometimes. You're there just to take in the scenery and enjoy it. And for me, capturing photos is a way for me to kind of see through a lens and take in those memories, if you will. It's one of the things that's got me addicted to photography as it is I see through the focal length that I have on my camera, 24 or 28, and then like 35 or 50. I walk around with the lens on my camera and I see it that way. And so for me, I end up bringing a bunch of stuff. I always end up just shooting one or two lenses, and that's the end of it. But the mindset of this should really be not so much on the photography side. Photography should be a nice outcome. This is not a photography trip. And for most of us, it's a capturing the moments trip. And that's what this is going to be. You know, in reality, my wife and I have been married for almost 7 years, and our anniversary is coming up at the end of the month, April 30th. And we rarely get to go on trips by ourselves. It's been fortunate for me that I've been able to win these trips through my sales efforts to go on these things and spend some time with her, especially in these super nice locations where they take care of you. Now, it's somewhat unfortunate that we have to do work-related things. We can't just be her and I the entire time, but it is what it is, right? Beggars can't be choosers, and I'm not complaining. Don't get me wrong. But we don't have the kids with us, and I'll miss them. I love my kids, but I'm going to really spend time with my wife, and that's really the primary focus. It's go explore an island, a place that I'll probably never, ever go to again, and explore some time with my wife just to sit there. I mean, when you get busy with kids and marriage and running around to baseball and soccer and hockey and gymnastics and cheerleading and all the different things we do, you really kind of just get into survival mode and get stuff done mode, get GSD, and you don't really get to spend time to connect. And I think it'd be a major miss on my part if I were to spend the entire time thinking about photography and lugging around gear because I'm in this island that is remote to us. I remember that being the case last year in Punta Mita, where I brought my Z6 II with the 28-28 and the 40 f2, and it really just ended up being an aside to the trip itself. And I'm pretty sure that'll happen here. My only regret from last year, like I said, was not having a somewhat longer focal length for a shot that I wanted. And so, you know, kind of continuing on from my last video about travel setup and travel advice and that kind of stuff, I would say you need to be focused on the primary outcome, primary reason why you're there. And if photography is not the main focus, if this is not a photography-focused only trip, like you didn't go to Iceland just to shoot photos, then I think you got to let the photography be a secondary outcome, a way for you to kind of capture moments and enjoy the process. And so I wanted to start this video with that in mind, because that mindset, after I've gone back and forth, and should I bring a zoom lens, 3 prime, should I bring a travel camera, all the stuff that's gone through my head, I've landed there. And it's going to be what is going to allow me to enjoy the process the most as a secondary thing to being on vacation with my wife. So with that being said, I have a meeting in 5 minutes. I'll come back and we're going to go through the gear that I am packing. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still not really sure this is the right setup, but we're going to send it. So I'll be right back in just a second here. All right, so welcome back. We are on the iPhone front-facing camera cinematic mode f8, if you guys care. This is just the audio as it comes out of the phone itself. I'm ready to tell you guys what I'm going to be doing for gear, and it goes against my last video in terms of simplicity. So let's get into that. And let's first start with the bags that I'm going to use. The first bag I'm going to use, the one that's going to get me to my destination and back, is going to be my Brevity backpack. I love this backpack. It's real simple. It doesn't look like a camera backpack. It's not too big. It's comfortable. And you guys have seen me review this on the channel before, but in case you haven't, it's real simple. You got camera compartments in here, and you got stuff up here you can store things in. You can slide, laptop in the back right here. And it has the little straps right here for go on top of like your handle of your suitcase. And so overall, this backpack's fantastic. If I were to bring a tripod, you can fit that right here on the side, which I'm not sure if I'm going to or not, to be honest. That's still a TBD. Or you can also roll something up down here, like if you had a blanket or a sweatshirt or whatever, and throw it in the straps. This really is a great little versatile bag that doesn't look like a camera bag, and I like it a lot. Now, when I'm traveling to my destination, I'm going to be storing the bag that I'm going to be using while I'm there, and that is the Peak Design 3-liter bag. I'll be storing it in here like this. I'm going to smash it down. It fits in the top of the Brevity bag, and that's perfect. And I'm kind of focusing my whole entire bag idea system around Peak Design stuff. So if you guys notice on my 3-liter here, I have the Peak Design version 1 capture clip. So I'll focus on that. There we go. And I'm going to clip this on the strap of my backpack while I'm traveling. So the camera will be hanging off of my backpack while I'm traveling. So I'll be able to access it and take some photos quickly there. And then as you guys can see here, while I'm out and about on some of the different things, excursions, I'm going to be just using the 3-liter swing. I don't want a huge camera setup, and it clips right into here. And I'll show you how I use that in just a minute. But before we get into like the camera body and the lenses and what my thoughts are with each one, I want to talk about the workflow, the devices I'm going to bring to kind of move data to and from and edit photos if I need to, and also do work while I'm there. So let's focus on that first. Okay, so my entire decision around what devices to work from and off of come around being portable, lightweight, and simple, but also USB-C. And that's kind of what I'm doing. So I'm going to be leaving the MacBook at home simply because it requires a different charger to charge, the magnetic clip-in one. It's a big bulky charger. I don't want to bring that with me. Instead, I'm going to be bringing the iPad Air, the latest iPad Air. Just realized this case has got something on it, probably for my kids. Anyways, the latest iPad Air. Now, I'm primarily a Capture One user, and Capture One's iPad app sucks, candidly. I also use Luminar Neo sometimes if I need to, but I do happen to have a mobile subscription to Lightroom iPad. And the benefit of that is that I can plug in my photos to this, put them into Lightroom Mobile. It'll upload to the cloud. They'll be backed up there, and that makes it safe. I can edit from this if I have to. I got the Apple Pencil, which makes it real easy to edit as well. And I can also, because I have the keyboard case on this thing, if you guys see this, a little kickstand deal, I can work off of this for work. Now, I'm obviously going on vacation. I don't want to work, but I'm going to have to a little bit. And using Microsoft Office and Teams and getting into OneDrive, all that stuff works perfectly on this. And so for me, I am just bringing the iPad Air, this nice thin little thing, as it is. The reason why USB-C is important, though, is because I can charge this iPad with USB-C, obviously. So it allows me just to bring this charger right here. But also, the way I can manage data. So this little thing, this little guy right here, I got off of, probably not picking it up, off of Amazon a while ago. And this thing I use for everything. Now, if you look, let me go off camera. If you look right here, you've got a SD card slot, so my camera can put their SD card in there. You got micro SD, which we'll talk about how that fits into like the GoPro. You got USB, I think this is A, right? And then on the back side here, you've got two USB-Cs and then an HDMI. And the way it connects is through USB-C to USB-C. See, this comes out of here and it plugs in. The way I would use this is I would plug this into here, right? I could take photos off of this and back them into Lightroom by plugging in, I'll take it off the iPad. You guys get the concept. But plugging in the SD card, whichever one it is, goes right here. So you got this bad boy, if you guys see that. And then this tiny little guy, you guys see this little SanDisk thing? It's 128 gigs. It also connects either via USB-C or if you flip this thing around, USB-A. And so when I plug this guy into my iPad, I plug my SD card into here, I plug this little thing into here, I can back up the photos to here as well as Lightroom from my SD card and keep working. And so, you know, this tiny little flash drive and then this little guy, this little thing makes it really awesome as a small little package to go with this and allows me to do anything and everything I want. And so that's why I decided to go with the iPad plus this combination, because it fits real well with kind of storage and movement and that kind of thing. All right, so let's talk cameras now. In the video I made back, I said a couple weeks ago, a week ago, I said simplicity is key. And I talked about not wanting to change lenses and stuff like that. And I still subscribe to that being true. But I got to be honest with you guys, I'm having a bit of a mental hurdle because I have the Sigma 28-70 f2.8 lens. It's a great lens. 28's good on the wide end, 70's good on the long end. But as I use it, because I've been using it the last couple weeks, I find myself kind of going 35, 50, no, 28, and going back and forth. And what I know about myself from shooting the M and shooting like the Nikon and Sony, I always buy prime lenses for the most part because they are the way my brain works. So when I have a 50 clicked onto the camera, I think in 50. If I have a 24 or a 28 on the camera, I shoot in that focal length. And that's kind of how my brain works from a photography perspective. The only time I regret that decision is when I have to change lenses, which is obviously a pain in the butt and you have to carry them with you. So that's a big negative. And also if you have the wrong focal length on your camera, the moment it happens, it is what it is. You can't quickly go boom, 70 and hit it. So I know that's the downside, but I got to be honest with you, as I'm about to go on this trip, I think I'm going to go to primes again. And I'll tell you why. And I'll start with my first prime. My first prime is the Sigma 24mm f2 lens. This is the contemporary lens. They're I-series lenses. And the reason why I like this lens in particular is on my SL2-S, which is the camera I'm going to bring. I actually sold the Fuji X-T5, not to surprise to nobody. But if you look right here, the way you control exposure on this camera is that you have a dial up top. This is usually shutter speed or whatever. And then dial back here, which can be ISO. And there's no aperture ring. These lenses happen to have an aperture ring right there. And they also have autofocus, manual focus switches on them. And it's a smaller footprint than the zoom lens. Not significantly, but it is a smaller footprint. If you look right here, it's about 2/3 the size of that lens. And I just like having the aperture ring kind of for my Fuji shooting on the lens and having the other two controls on the wheels. So I'm going to bring the 24mm. The other reason is that when I was playing with the zoom at 28 versus this at 24, the difference between 24 and 28 is significant. And when you're shooting wide and shallow, which f2, it makes a big deal. And I would suspect that for probably 60% of my photos, I'll be shooting at the 24mm focal length. You're in an area where you want to bring in the scene and the landscape. And I just imagine as I go through the airport or I arrive at my destination or I'm at the resort, I want to grab all the different things and bring it in. And so 24mm is going to be probably more useful for me, even as a prime, than just 28. Also, I'll talk about why 28 is involved in just a second. So 24mm lens. The second lens is the 50mm. I always have shot 28-50 or 24-50. I continue to do that. I did that on my M system. I've shot on other cameras all the time. And I was going to bring just the Summicron 50 because I really like the whole smaller lens profile. And I like the fact that, like, you know, I can manual focus it. But if I'm being honest with you, I think shooting primes plus having manual focus might be a bit much. But that's not the only reason. Is this lens doesn't fit into my filter strategy. And I'll talk about that in just a second. So having to go from like an autofocus 24 f2 to a 50 f2 manual focus on a different mount, I don't know. I thought it was too much. I'll be honest with you. I was between this one and what I ultimately think I'm going to bring, which is the SL50. There you go. Focus on that. The SL50. My hesitation here is that the footprint is obviously significantly bigger than the other one. If you get to like right here, you can see that there's, you know, probably, again, a 2/3 difference. But this isn't that big of a lens when you boil it down. And I just think this lens is a bit sharper, has a bit more contrast. And I like the colors that come out of both of these, candidly. But I think the 50 is what I'm going to go with as my second lens. The downside of this lens is, like I said on the Sigma lens, is it doesn't have an autofocus manual focus switch. That sucks. And it doesn't have the aperture on the lens. So that's why I was having a hard time. Do I want to go with the manual focus M lens, which has aperture, and just kind of leave it at that, or do I want to do this? And ultimately, I'm going to go with this, I think, as it is. So that's the second lens I'm going to be bringing. The third lens I'm going to be bringing with me is, this Sigma 90mm f2.8 lens. Now this lens is probably going to see 5% of the shooting or less. It's going to be an emergency only type situation, but it's actually quite small. You know, you should compare it to the 2870. I mean, it's about half the size, maybe a little bit more than half the size. If you compare it to the 24, it's even smaller than the 24 just by a hair. Let me get this lens cap off so it's fair, right? So it's a little bit smaller than the 24 itself. So that's great. And the reason why going from 70 to 90 is a pretty big difference. One of my concerns last year was getting enough reach for one of these shots I wanted. And I suspect this will only come with me on day 2, which is the Jeep tour and the Rum tour. And it'll just sit in my bag 99% of the time, except for if it's that one landscape shot where I need to reach a little bit and I want to isolate something. And so that's this. And if I use crop mode, it's 135 millimeters, right? So I could just shoot crop and get 135 millimeters of reach, which I think is significant. So for all intents and purposes, we're going to be shooting mostly on 24 and 50. And that's kind of how it fits into the Peak Design 3-liter bag. In addition to the SL, as a second camera, I am going to be bringing the Ricoh GR3. Yes, I got this again for the third time now, the Ricoh GR3. I actually found a guy locally. I have 4 batteries for it. And I actually have the 21mm wide angle conversion lens. I don't think I'm going to be bringing that, to be honest with you. It's unnecessary, but this is for a pocket. So I kind of see the SL living with me for the specific outings. But the times where we're like not able to bring a bag or it doesn't make sense, this will live in my pocket. And I'll just bring a couple batteries with it. And this is just, in my opinion, the best pocket camera that exists. Whether it's a GR3 or GR3X is up to you. I think 28 millimeters is more versatile. And so I'm bringing this camera. This thing had 73 on the shutter count when I got it. 4 batteries, wide angle conversion lens, and the adapter. A whole bunch of other accessories. Got it for like $700. So that was a fantastic deal. Got the little different color ring. Awesome. And what you'll notice on the bottom here is I have this little Joby thing. This just lives on the bottom. And when you spin it out, it becomes a little mini tripod. And so what this is great for is if you want to like set up something where my wife and I are doing something or whatever, you set it on a ledge and it lets you kind of set it down and tilt it. And then when you're done with it, you just, retract it back right here. And it lives flat along the camera. So this is actually a pretty cool little thing to have with you, this thing here. And so it's going to be an either or situation. I'm not going to have the Ricoh on me and the Leica. It's going to be one or the other. Now I did think about like, what if I put the 50 on the Leica and this in my pocket, so I'd have to change lenses? It's a thought. I don't know. I could change my mind and adapt. And then last but not least, I am going to be bringing the GoPro or DJI Osmo Action with these microphones simply because they'll fit in my backpack. There's no consequence to bringing these. The benefit to having this, is that, if I had the Leica hanging on my shoulder and I want to treat this just as photos, I can just pull this out and kind of grab some B-roll or whatever. Or if I somehow find time to talk to you guys and make a video, this has a little adapter for the mic input right here. And I can plug the mics in and make a video for you guys. I don't think I'll be doing that, candidly. I'm going to be trying to enjoy my vacation per part 1 of this video. But there's no consequence to bringing this. And if I want to take some video of me in the pool, or my wife in the pool, or we're in this Jeep thing and just kind of get some B-roll real quick, I might bust this out. Maybe, maybe not. It's just, I think I regret it if I left it. I have the room. Might as well bring it. It's tiny. It's easy to do. And that's where the SD card slot, the micro SD card slot on the adapter comes into play. And so the last thing I need to show you guys is kind of the filter strategy. Now, I already had a 72mm variable ND 10-stop filter. Had this for a long time, and I kind of plan on bringing this for, long exposures if I get a chance. I don't know if I'll actually be able to do that or not, but again, it's inconsequential to throw this in my bag and just have it and use it. I have step-up rings for all 3 of those rings, so 55 to 72 on the 90mm lens. I have 62 to 72 on the 24mm lens, And then for the SL50, I have the 67 to 72 step-up ring. So I'll just put these in there with that. And if I need the ND filter, I'll use it. But primarily what I'm actually thinking is using a circular polarizer filter. Again, these are both 72 millimeter filters. Yeah, I struggle for that word. And I think the polarizer will sit on there most of the time because I remember I went to Italy on my honeymoon. I threw a polarizer on the front of my lens for a bit, and the images off that looked fantastic when it was bright and sunny out and we were at the Amalfi Coast. And this is similar. It's a tropical kind of landscape, and I think this makes the blues pop. It brings more detail into your skies. I think the polarizer is a must. And so I'll just leave these step-up rings on the front of the lenses and just swap this polarizer on whenever I need it for these trips. So yeah, that's it. We're gonna, bring all this stuff. I probably won't use a good chunk of it. The only piece that remains to be unknown is this tripod that this phone is set up on right now. Will I use this? Should I bring it just in case? It's a travel tripod. It's a Benro travel tripod. Stick it in the side of the bag, and if for some reason I get up super early or if it's late at night and I want to do a long exposure, do I want to bring the tripod? I think the answer is no. Again, right? It's like, if you can bring it and you can fit it and you might want it, is it better just to bring it with you? Even though my intent, my focus, my mindset is spending time with my wife and just documenting the journey and trying to make some good photos. And candidly, I think I've got enough opportunities to shoot, and I want to focus on trying to learn composition and get some good photos. I need to practice more. And I think my mind just works best in primes. So I'm bringing primes on this trip. So that's it. That's my photography mindset, my travel mindset, and my final kit for this whole thing. Hopefully this iPhone video wasn't terrible. Hopefully the audio wasn't terrible on this part. I apologize if it was. The only video camera I have right now is the SL2-S, and I wanted to show it to you. So with that, thank you guys. I will see you next time. I may or may not make a video while I'm out there. These are easy to make for me most of the time. But if not, the next video you see from me might be a travel montage of my trip. Wish me safe travels. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you on the backside.